Hi, I'm Luke, and you're watching ZachArcher.
All right. So 5 years ago, at this point, a lot of stuff happening 5 years ago. I realized from my recent nostalgia trip I've been going down. Like I did a lot of things I can look back on 5 years ago, 2016. But 5 years ago, I did a video reacting to George Carlin on religion and God, which was interesting because I had at the time I was planning on because I kind of did reactions to anything and everything. Well, not anything, but it was like all the things I was really passionate about. Comedy, I love. But I was never really big into stand-up comedy. Despite that, I never really got into it. So I was like, I'm gonna try out this one because I had seen some George Carlin before, just not much. And then I was gonna ask for recommendations and go from there. But it ended up being the only one of its kind that I really did a video on. And 5 years later, I look back and I still like every now and then we'll get notifications from people watching that video and commenting. And it's like wild. The video kind of just took off randomly, despite me not doing any more comedy videos like that. Just people just start stumbling upon it, I guess. And so I thought, hey, 5 years later, let's try it out again. Let's just watch some comedy. And I'm gonna watch George Carlin again because I actually looked in the comments, and despite a lot of people stumbling upon it, there weren't really many great specific suggestions. There were some names they dropped, but in terms of specific bits to watch, that aren't too long. I didn't see many, so I just kind of looked up George Carlin, and this was a shorter one. I didn't want to get into like a 20 to 30 minute one at this time, but just kind of dip my toes in there, see how it goes. But it's interesting, the video I did 5 years ago, it was mixed. There were a lot of people that I really appreciated. There were some people that didn't appreciate it as much because I'm not a huge overreactor, and it does take a lot to make me laugh. So despite I love making people laugh, I love comedy, it does take a good amount to actually get me to laugh, like full on laugh. I'll be like, that's pretty good, stuff like that. But it's hard to kind of break me more than that. Like in terms of stand-up comedy like this, there are things that'll just make me laugh every day, and shows and things like that, comedic moments. I have a soul, so I laugh, and laughter is the best medicine for sure. But everybody was kind of like, some people were just like, he doesn't get it. He's too young, and based on his reactions, he just doesn't get it. And then some people appreciated my comments afterwards because we kind of went into a bit of the religion talk. I talked about how I was agnostic, but that's besides the point now. But yeah, people are like, man, I think you're just depressed, dude. You were unfazed in this reaction. I'm like, yeah, I guess I was depressed, but I'm even more depressed now. And hey, we're gonna have some fun with this. All right, so I don't know if this is one of his best or whatever. It's just kind of a random clip I picked out. You Have No Rights, George Carlin. 2008 is when this was uploaded. So I don't know when it was originally. Doesn't say. Is it actually from this movie, George Carlin Is Bad for You? From March of 2008. Okay, so it actually was from when this was posted. Interesting. In the rawest of 240p quality. Love that.
Swearing on the Bible. You understand that shit? They tell you to raise your right hand, place your left hand on the Bible. Does this stuff really matter? Which hand? Does God really give a fuck about details like this? Suppose you put your right hand in the Bible, you raise your left hand. Would that count? Or would God say, sorry, wrong hand, try again? And why does one hand have to be raised? What is the magic in this gesture? This seems like some sort of a primitive voodoo mojo shtick. Why not put your left hand on the Bible, let your right hand hang down by your side? It's more natural. Or put it in your pocket. Remember what your mother used to say? Don't put your hands in your pockets. Does she know something we don't know? Is this hand shit really important? Well, let's get back to the Bible, America's favorite national theatrical prop.
Jeez. Yeah.
Suppose the Bible they hand you to swear on is upside down, or backward, or both, and you swear to tell the truth on an upside down, backward Bible. Would that count? Suppose the Bible they hand you is an old Bible and half the pages are missing. Suppose all they have is a Chinese Bible in an American court, or a Braille Bible and you're not blind. Suppose they hand you an upside down, backward Chinese Braille Bible with half the pages missing.
I didn't know this
At
was going to be
what
another
point does
religion
all
one.
this stuff just break down and become just a lot of
I
stupid
guess that's
shit
just a
that
big thing for
somebody
George
made
Carlin.
up? They fucking made it up, folks. It's make-believe. It's make-believe. Now,
Yeah.
all right. Okay. Let's leave the Bible aside. We'll get back to the science fiction reading later. The more important question is, what is the big deal about swearing to God in the first place? Why does swearing to God mean you're going to tell the truth? Wouldn't affect me. If they said to me, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God, I'd say, yeah. I'll tell you about as much truth as the people who wrote that fucking Bible. How do you like that? Huh?
I've always thought about that. Because I'm like, they have people swear in the Bible, but what if the Bible doesn't mean anything to you? If you're not religious, what good does like swearing an oath on the Bible really accomplish? I guess it's just kind of routine at this point, but still, it's interesting.
Swearing on the Bible doesn't mean anything. It's kid. Swearing to God is kid stuff. Remember when you were a kid? If you told another kid something he didn't quite believe, he'd say, "You swear to God?" I would always say, "Yeah, I swear to God," even if I was lying. Why not? What's going to happen if I lie? Nothing. Nothing happens if you lie, unless you get caught, and that's a whole different story. Sometimes a kid would think he was being slick with me, and he'd say, "You swear on your mother's grave?" I'd say, "Yeah." Why not? First of all, my mother was alive. She didn't even have a grave. Second of all, even if she was dead, what's she going to do? Rise from the grave and come and haunt me? Come and haunt me? All because I told a lie to an 8-year-old? Get fucking real, will you?
Yeah.
Sometimes I would say, "I swear on my mother's tits."
Okay.
Kids are impressed with things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't care about my mother's tits either. I don't care if they fell off. Fuck her. Not my problem. They're your tits, Ma. You keep an eye on them. Swearing to God doesn't mean anything. Swearing on the Bible doesn't mean anything. You know why? Because Bible or no Bible, God or no God, if it suits their purposes, people are going to lie in court. The police do it all the time. All the time. Yes, they do. It's part of their job to protect, to serve, and to commit perjury whenever it supports the state's case. Swearing on the Bible is just one more way of controlling people and keeping them in line, and it's one more thing that holds us back as a species. Here's one more item for you, the last in our civics book, rights. Boy, everyone in this country is always running around yammering about their fucking rights. I have a right, you have no right, we have a right, they don't have a right. Folks, I hate to spoil your fun, but there's no such thing as rights, okay? They're imaginary. We made them up, like the boogeyman. The Three Little Pigs, Pinocchio, Mother Goose, shit like that. Rights are an idea. They're just imaginary. They're a cute idea. Cute. But that's all. Cute and fictional. But if you think you do have rights, let me ask you this. Where do they come from? People say, well, they come from God. They're God-given rights. Oh, fuck, here we go again. Here we go again. The God excuse. The last refuge of a man with no answers and no argument. It came from God. Anything we can't describe must have come from God. Personally, folks, I believe that if your rights came from God, He would have given you the right to some food every day, and He would have given you the right to a roof over your head. God would have been looking out for you. God would have been looking out for you. You know that? He wouldn't have been worried about making sure you have a gun so you can get drunk on Sunday night and kill your girlfriend's parents. But let's say it's true. Let's say God gave us these rights. Why would He give us a certain number of rights? The Bill of Rights of this country has 10 stipulations, okay? 10 rights. And apparently God was doing sloppy work that week because we've had to amend the Bill of Rights an additional 17 times. So God forgot a couple of things like slavery. Just fucking slipped his mind. But let's say God gave us the original 10. He gave the British 13. The British Bill of Rights has 13 stipulations. The Germans have 29. The Belgians have 25. The Swedish have only 6. And some people in the world have no rights at all. What kind of a fucking goddamn God-given deal is that? No rights at all? Why would God give different people in different countries different numbers of different rights? Boredom? Amusement? Bad arithmetic? Do we find out at long last, after all this time, that God is weak in math skills? Doesn't sound like divine planning to me. Sounds more like human planning. Sounds more like one group trying to control another group. In other words, business as usual in America. Now, if you think you do have rights, one last assignment
really
for
gets
you.
down to
Next
it.
time you're at the computer, get on the internet, go to Wikipedia. When you get to Wikipedia, in the search field for Wikipedia, I want you to type in Japanese Americans 1942, and you'll find out all about your precious fucking rights, okay? All right. You know about it. You know about it. Yeah. In 1942, there were 110,000 Japanese American citizens in good standing, law-abiding people who were thrown into internment camps simply because their parents were born in the wrong country. That's all they did wrong. They had no right to a lawyer, no right to a fair trial, no right to a jury of their peers, no right to due process of any kind. The only right they had, right this way, into the internment camps. Just when these American citizens needed their rights the most, their government took them away. And rights aren't rights if someone can take them away. They're privileges. That's all we've ever had in this country is a bill of temporary privileges. And if you read the news even badly, you know that every year the list gets shorter and shorter and shorter. You see how sooner or later? Yeah. Sooner or later, the people in this country are going to realize the government does not give a fuck about them. Government doesn't care about you or your children or your rights or your welfare or your safety. It simply doesn't give a fuck about you. It's interested in its own power. That's the only thing, keeping it and expanding it wherever possible. Personally, when it comes to rights, I think one of two things is true. I think either we have unlimited rights or we have no rights at all. Personally, I lean toward unlimited rights. I feel, for instance, I have the right to do anything I please. But if I do something you don't like, I think you have the right to kill me. So where are you going to find a fairer fucking deal than that? So the next time some asshole says to you, I have a right to my opinion, you say, oh yeah? Well, I have a right to my opinion, and my opinion is you have no right to your opinion. Then shoot the fuck and walk away. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well,
For just
this ought to be
$67,
good. Oh,
you
God.
can make as many videos as you want, and you never need to pick up a
For real?
camera or use any fancy editing software.
Doodly.com?
With Doodly,
I better watch this 5.5 minute
Some
ad.
settings, and boom, video done.
Okay.
It'll take you just a few minutes.
Oh.
So,
All right. Wow. Okay. Nice. Nice. So I guess, I mean, the one I watched before was specifically about religion and God, but I think from what I've gathered from George Carlin, it's just a big part of his stand-up in general. So it'd probably be hard-pressed to find one routine without it included in one way or another. Yeah, that was great. That was great. George Carlin has a way of telling you like it is. It really makes a lot of sense that he was so successful because there's a certain like bluntness, no bullshit way that he does his stand up that I think you can really appreciate because you don't see that too often. Even in comedy, there's a lot of like dancing around certain things, but George Carlin will just cut straight to the chase. Like his perspective is out there for everybody to see. It's like, and he just says it like, boom, this is matter of fact. God, the Bible, it's all made up, and it's all honestly, for me, like I talked about this before, but it was 5 years ago. I actually don't remember exactly what I said, but I imagine my opinions are relatively the same in terms of I've always thought of religion, God, the Bible, all these things to sort of be coping mechanisms one way or another. I'm not going to go so far as to say that God doesn't exist, because I don't think that's why I'm agnostic, is because I don't think it's conceivable to really say one way or another, because we don't have proof against God. Now I get what he's saying, and this has been my perspective a lot when I get into religious discussions, when he says that, if there was a God, you'd think he would give you a roof over your head, you'd give food, like those are your rights, like you'd think he would take care of you in that way if there really was a God. And yeah, that's kind of my perspective a lot, is, 'cause you hear tragedy after tragedy happening to seemingly like perfectly innocent, upstanding citizens, a lot of them God-fearing citizens, that are just like victims of these tragedies one after the other, horrible things people do, and even just natural disasters. It's like they're praying up until the very end, and it didn't get them anywhere. So at what point do we say, I don't know, at what point do we say that, like, is God really there? Is he really listening, hearing your prayers, things like that? It's really been tough for me in that regard, because I definitely get what he's saying, to where the God you would think would be looking out for the people, especially these innocent people, but time after time we see that doesn't happen. And depending on where you live, you're gonna have a much better time, and just like you kind of are you're born into a privilege or a lack of privilege a lot of the times that you can't really escape. And then God, people talk about God, and God works in mysterious ways, and God has a plan for us all, but it's always been a hard pill for me to swallow, is that logic doesn't really check out for me. And it's always felt like, as blunt as he says it, I do agree that it's always felt like their explanation, once there's nothing left to fall back on, it's kind of like you default to God, and religion is kind of that cushion. And no doubt God and faith has been beneficial for a lot of people. It's helped them through a lot. I just don't think, me being a logical person, I don't think I could ever be on that same wavelength, because you have to suspend disbelief on a lot of things just to kind of buy into it, because I'm not seeing it. It's hard to believe in something you don't see any proof of whatsoever. At the same time, I don't have another explanation, like, how are we all here, what's the purpose of everything, But to me, it's never made any more or less sense to say God is the reason. Like, look around you, like, you're living, you're breathing, so what explanation is there for it? I don't have it. I just, my belief is that there's no reason to strongly believe one way or another. I'm not going to say God is definitely real. I'm not going to say God's definitely not real, because I literally have no way of conceivably knowing this. And so for me, it's easier for me, well, not easier. I feel like in a lot of ways it would be easier to have some sort of faith. It does help through problems, dealing with like trauma and depression, some things I've dealt with. I feel like it would have been helpful to have religion, some sort of faith to support me there. But like I said, I feel like I'm a fairly logical person, so it's hard for me to buy into something like that with no actual reason to, other than just like it would be nice and it would be a helpful way to cope. I just don't see it. And you hear stories of people who are like, in times of need, they'll turn to the Bible or some other religious text, and then it'll speak to them in some way, to where it's like they're spiritually awakened, and it's like they've found their purpose. And it's like, okay, I can't dispute that. It's not something I can really dispute. It's a personal thing, but I also haven't had that experience or anything even remotely close to that. But that's why I think George Carlin's brand of comedy is so cool. It's so unique, and it's very effective. Because the way he speaks, it just complements it so nicely, because it's so years you're brought up, especially a decade ago. 16 years ago. Wait, what was this? This was like a decade ago, 13 years. But even like earlier and earlier, when he was still talking about these issues and religion, it was so drilled and ingrained in your head that this like God and a belief in God is almost the expected thing out of people. So it was almost the standard. So to be like, no, I don't believe in this, and then to tell it so bluntly and in the way that George Carlin does, it's the shock factor that I think people could resonate with during a time where it wasn't the norm to be anti-religious or secular at all. So I think he came at a time where it was groundbreaking, and he was able to latch onto that, and that's why he was so successful. I totally get it, because all these years later, 2021 is a lot more acceptable to not be religious, and it's a lot more common. You see it's becoming more and more common, whether you're atheist or just not non-practicing, non-religious in general. It's a lot more common than when George Carlin was first coming in talking about it like this. So I mean, there's something to be said about that. I think that I think as we're exposed to more and more information, and we're able to go out and do our own research, the correlation between that and people being less religious, I think there's something to be said there. But yeah, that's just kind of my perspective on it. George Carlin, this was a great clip. I really loved it. It was a fun time. So if I should check out more George Carlin or other comedians, feel free. I'd love to tackle some more issues like this. It'll be fun. But I've always wanted to have like a full-on religious discussion on my channel at some point. Maybe because I do have friends who are religious and who are not. They're intelligent people. Hold on, what's going on up here? There are plenty of friends I had who are really religious. They actually like faith is really important to them, but they are really intelligent. And so to me, it's always been interesting. I've never been able to truly understand their perspective, but I'd like to have that conversation in depth at some point. Would be cool. All right, go to ZachArcher.net for the latest and greatest from me.